Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a good few times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, quite a few different styles, but I think it is still fair to say that this brewery are best known for their different New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I have had from them before, albeit it's been quite a long time since I had this one, but those beers that I tried from them in this style before were very, very good, and this is a style that I know they can produce the goods on actually. So I have to say I'm very curious to return to this one after what seems like quite a long time actually. It must have been a way back in about 2016 or so that I last had this style from this brewery in fact. So yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then we are going to head up towards Gothenburg once again, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast, and we're going to have a look at another beer from OO Brewing. So this particular beer is called Cichi. It comes in at 6.7% ABV, and this one is a West Coast IPA. So yeah, this beer was released as part of the local Osmoskalikt assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for February of 2021, and I think this was the only beer that they released this month, if memory serves me correctly. But this is my first West Coast IPA from these guys since Muscles and Evergreen, and those two beers were pretty damn awesome actually, so I was quite glad when I saw that they redid Muscles, and I think they did Evergreen as well last year again in 2021. But those were beautiful West Coast IPAs, so I have to say I'm very curious to see what their new West Coast IPA is going to have in store for us. So yeah, let's get on with it then and see how we go. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from OO Brewing before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you once again a little bit about OO Brewing. So OO Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg, up on the Swedish west coast, and the company was founded back in 2011 by Olaf and Ole Andersson, who are no relation, but they are childhood friends. So for many years, they were also avid homebrewers, and they just got deeper and deeper into this hobby, and they've always been interested in beers. Ole has apparently been heavily involved in the Gothenburg beer scene since pre-drinking age, and he was of course the original head brewer at Stigbergets Brewery, and this is where a lot of the original OO Brewing beers were produced. So Ole, of course, is the creator of the Amazing Haze and the GBG Beer Week beer for 2016, along with the Narangi, which was released under their own OO brand. And these are three of, in my opinion, the four Swedish cult classic New England IPAs. The other one, of course, would be the Opigård's New Sweden IPA, and if Brewski had a regular one, they would have been in that bracket as well, but they were always producing lots and lots of different beers actually. But while Ole takes care of the brewing side of things, Olaf manages the business side of the brewery. I believe he is now involved in the company full time, but for a while he was working in Copenhagen for a magazine, if I remember correctly, something like that. But now he is back in Gothenburg and with the company full-time, as I said. But these guys just like to make beers that they would enjoy drinking themselves. But in April of 2017, Ole left Stigbergets Brewery to invest his time fully in OO, and the company invested in a brewery facility in Hisingen near the Tingstead Bridge. And this is equipped with a 2,000 litre brewing system, and it means they can brew up to 500,000 litres of beer per year. Over the course of the first year, they brewed around 100,000 litres, and they're basically just planning to expand up to capacity over the next few years. In 2020, they produced about 300,000 litres, and I wasn't able to find a figure for 2021, but perhaps it had gone up a little bit, but not 100% sure about that because of the whole thing with the coronavirus pandemic, of course. But they've also just taken over the premises of the Bang restaurant, which is going to be their new tap room, and this opened in the summer of 2021. And as of February 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 95 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. And I guess we can also say that they have a kind of unofficial tap room home at Bar Kino in the Hagebjørn's Cafe, which of course is where Stigbjerg's brewery was originally based. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about OO Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn a little bit more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that is it for your history section on OO Brewing. I actually did have a little chat with Ole Anderson recently, and we will see about doing a Meet the Brewery segment at some point. When I make it up to Gothenburg, we'll go and have a little look at the brewery and do a wee interview with him. That would be pretty damn awesome, actually. So very much looking forward to that. But yeah, let's crack on then and have a little look at this beer itself. So, as I mentioned earlier on, this beer is a West Coast IPA coming in at 6.7% ABV. It's hopped with Citra and Chinook, and we know these hops very, very well. Both, I believe, come in about 14% alpha acid. Citra, of course, is going to give you that lovely big oily mango flavour. It's got quite a wee bit of lemon and lime character to it. You can sometimes get, like, you know, lychees and gooseberry and stuff out of it as well. Very, very complex hop. Whereas Chinook is a big beast. That's going to give you a lot of piney resin and also quite a strong grapefruity character as well. But yeah, this one should hopefully be proper old school. But there you can see the OO Brewing symbol on the back there. The OO, of course, just standing for Ole and Olaf. But yeah, nicely presented beer. This one, plain silver top on the can. I believe that I paid 50 Swedish kroner for this. So that is roughly about €5, somewhere in the region of like £4.50 sterling, and I guess maybe about $6 American, just for those of you watching in different places around the world. But 440ml can, as we said earlier, 6.7% West Coast IPA. So without further ado, let's have a little look at the Cichi then from OO Brewing in Gothenburg. We'll get it out and into the glass. There we go. So yeah, I'm very curious to see how this is going to turn out, because a lot of the West Coast IPAs I've had in recent times have actually been, you know, they've not had so much bitterness and things to them. They seem to have dropped the IBU, and I guess the main reason for them doing that is because a lot of the kind of newer craft beer drinkers that are involved in the scene now came into the scene over the last kind of 5, 6, 7 years it is now, when the New England IPA was on the rise. So yeah, a lot of newer craft beer drinkers are not used to the bitterness in the same way that we were back in, you know, 2012, 2013 and things, with the old Brewdog hardcore IPA and stuff like that. So this is a change we've seen over the years when it comes to New England IPAs, or to the IPA in general, I guess we should say, the West Coast IPA. But anyway, we've got most of this guy out into the glass. Let's take a look at the appearance. So as you can see, the beer has poured with about a 2/3, somewhere between a half and 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head. It's leaving a nice kind of thick ring around the edge of the glass, but the middle is just fading away to be a little bit of a more kind of foamy layer. But yeah, it looks very nice. So if we wipe the condensation away, you can see that this beer does actually have a little bit of a kind of natural haze to it, actually. This one, it says on the can that it contains only barley malt. Of course, New Englands tend to contain wheat and oat malt as well in them. But yeah, the West Coast IPAs, some of them will have a little bit of wheat in them. I think if I remember rightly, the School Pin from Ballast Point had a little bit of wheat in it. But yeah, quite often these ones are 100% barley malt bases. But yeah, in terms of colour of this one, this leans towards the more kind of yellow end of the spectrum. It's a very, very light amber that you're getting out of this. But there's one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head. But yeah, I think it is definitely fair to say this is a very, very light yellowy amber that you're getting out of this one. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do, or any adjuncts that you put in, are also going to play a role in that as well. But yeah, in this case, you know, when it comes to most IPAs, you don't often need to care about that. But yeah, it looks very, very nice, this one. So yeah, I like how this beer appears, and certainly within the realms of possibility for a West Coast IPA. I don't think we need to say anything else about the appearance of this one, so I think we can have a little look at the aroma and see how we go. So yeah, let's do it. Ooh. Now, aroma-wise, that does come across pretty nicely. Now, as I've explained in other videos, for me there's two different ways a West Coast IPA can go. You can either get the one that's going to be a little bit more bready and biscuity, such as the Plain of the Elder, Russian River, or you can get the one that is going to be a little bit more oily and caramelly, such as the Sierra Nevada Torpedo. For me, those are two of the kind of cult classic examples of this style. But yeah, the way that this one's going, just on the aroma, I think it's going toward the former. I think this is going to be a little bit more of a kind of bready and biscuity one. But I'm still curious, I can't really tell so much from the aroma about whether the IBUs are going to be quite big in this one. But yeah, aroma-wise it is pretty damn close to what we would expect from that more bready, biscuity side of the West Coast IPA spectrum. But yeah, that is very, very nice. So straight away, the backbone of this beer, you get a nice little bit of a bread crust in there. There's a bit of that kind of smooth white bread, but as you quite often get with these West Coast IPAs, the bready character smells just that little bit more crisp rather than being big and fluffy and smooth as you'll get in the New Englands. The bready character in this smells very nice, fresh and crisp, and you've just got that wee bit of a bread crust in behind it, which is great. But on top of that, yeah, on top of that, you're getting a little bit more sweetness. So there's a bit of that McVitie's digestive, biscuity sort of thing for sure. And that just adds a wee bit of sweetness. You could be forgiven for thinking there is a wee touch of a straight up caramel in this one, but I would, you know, hold my guns on that and say, I would definitely hold my guns on that and say it is a little bit more of a kind of, oily, caramelly, well, not more of an oily kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. It really smells a little bit more like that. It's not such a big, thick, oily, highly caramelised brown sugar that you're getting out of this one. But yeah, lovely bread crust, big white bready notes in there, lovely kind of crisp white bready character. And then you also have that, yeah, you've also got that, just that McVitie's digestive biscuity crispness in there. I really like that. I love that about these West Coast IPAs. Although I do wish I could find one that had that big oily caramelly character that I remember from Sierra Nevada Torpedo. I think that was one of the first big double West Coast IPAs that I tried. I'd love to go and try that on tap in one of their tap rooms over in the States. That would be awesome. But yeah, on the malty side of things, this one has everything you would expect. And as I say, it leans toward that more kind of bready, biscuity side of the West Coast style. So yeah, let's have a little look at the hoppy side of things and see how we go. I don't think there's much else we need to say about the malty side of this beer. But yeah, so green component of this one. This is quite interesting. So the green component of this one, I think, leans toward a little bit more of a kind of deep, it has a bit of a floral aromatic spice to it, but it's also got a little bit of a more kind of deep piney resinous character. So the Citra is the one that's going to give you the more kind of spicy note, I would say, whereas the Chinook is the one that's going to give you the deeper kind of pine resin. Now, the thing you have to remember with West Coast IPAs is that these beers tended to have, don't know how much these days, but back in the day, these ones always had a lot of early edition hops. So the hops that are added within the first hour of your wort boil are the ones that are going to give you more of the bitterness. Now, West Coast IPAs and New England IPAs both have also have late edition hopping and dry hopping. So the West Coast IPA, there's a lot more early edition hopping than there is in there's a lot more early edition hopping in West Coast IPAs than there is in New England. I think there's only a little bit in New England, but then in the last half hour of the wort boil, that you get this in both. And these ones tend to add a little bit of bitterness, but a lot of flavour and aroma. And then dry hopping after the wort boil is completely flavour and aroma orientated. So yeah, basically as you go across the course of the wort boil, you're dropping bitterness from the hops in favour of flavour and aroma actually. So bear that in mind. But yeah, aroma wise, this one is very, very nice actually. So on the green component, then you can smell those slightly deeper things which indicate a little bit of early edition hopping. But I found my palate's a bit strange with West Coast IPAs these days. I find that these tend to get a little bit more bitter the more that I drink of them. Back in the day, you always used to have a high bitterness impact from these beers, but now I feel it takes a little bit of time to kind of build up. But again, as I say, New England IPAs tend to be 30 IBUs. Back in the day, these were about 70, 80 and sort of thing, but I think they've toned it down a wee bit because of the influence of the New England IPA. But the green component in this one, it definitely has, as I say, a little bit of earthiness in there, but then a bright, slightly spicy floral aromaticity, a bit of pine resin underneath, and you've also got a little bit of a zesty grassiness coming out of this too. But then on the fruity side of things with this beer, it's showing off the Citra really nicely. I think the Chinook's the one that's most likely to be used as the bittering hop, I would hasten to add. But you do get a wee bit of that grapefruity character in there from the Chinook. And that will also be aided a little bit by the Citra too. But you get a nice little bit of passion fruit mixing in with that. But for me, the fruity component, it leans towards a kind of more oily, mango-y character. But you're also getting quite a little bit of a kind of lemony, zesty character out of this one. If I was smelling this blind, I would think there's a wee touch of Centennial in here. I think the Citra really is showing its kind of lemony side in this one. But I do get a wee bit of that kind of gooseberry lychee sort of thing that you can sometimes get from Citra in this beer as well. And that comes out a lot more in the West Coast IPAs rather than the New Englands. And you have to remember this with hops as well. They behave differently depending on what you mix them with. Simcoe is a classic example. If you put Simcoe into a West Coast IPA, it gives you that big, oily, quite pungent passion fruit. If you put it in a New England, it's a very soft, juicy passion fruit you get. And if you put it in a black IPA, it gives you lovely red fruity characters. So yeah, Simcoe for me is always the example of how hops do different things in different malt bases. So yeah, for me, Citra gives you a bit more of a lychee, gooseberry kind of character and a wee bit of lemon when you put it into a West Coast. But yeah, aroma-wise, this is nice. Wee touch of grapefruit, wee bit of passion fruit, big oily mango, then a bit of that kind of lemon note in there, a bit of lemon zestiness, and also a wee bit of a gooseberry lychee kind of thing. So yeah, the Citra showing itself off very nicely in this one. So as I always say, take a little bit of time to mull over the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it's about time, pardon me, that we try this one. So yeah, this is the Cichi, a West Coast IPA coming in at 6.7% ABV from OO Brewing in Gothenburg, Göteborg, up on the Swedish West Coast. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål, cheers. That's pretty good. That is pretty nice actually. As I said, it's doing the same thing as I've had with quite a few West Coast IPAs recently. It's not giving you quite the impact that you used to get from these beers, but I can certainly feel the bitterness building. So my first impression of this beer is good, and like I picked up from the aroma, this one is leaning a bit more towards that bready, biscuity side of the spectrum rather than being a big oily, caramelly sort of thing. But you could kind of tell that from the colour, to be honest with you as well. The ones that are the more richer amber kind of thing, they are going to be the more kind of caramelly and chewy sort of ones. But yeah, this is a very nice West Coast IPA, so thumbs up to OO Brewing for this. I would love to see these guys do the 100 series, like do a 100 West Coast series. If you can use this beer as a base for that and show off some of the newer hops like Sabro and Strata and all of these kind of things, I'd love to see OO Brewing use the base of this beer and do like a 100 series or even the 50-50 in a West Coast style. That would be a really interesting way for them to go. But yeah, this is a lovely beer, so thumbs up to OO Brewing for this. They've pulled this off very, very nicely actually. So yeah, let's kind of break this beer down for you a wee bit more. It's getting a bit sweeter the more that I drink of it as well, so that's nice. But yeah, this one gives you exactly everything you would expect of a more modern West Coast IPA, if we can call it that. Some people call these beers the California IPAs, actually. I'd be curious to see how the Oregon and Washington IPAs are at the moment, but that's another story. So yeah, let's break this down then and just describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. Straight away, across the middle of your palate then, you can feel that nice kind of bread crusty backbone. So yeah, if we're on the middle third of your palate, you've got that bread crusty backbone. On top of that, you get that nice kind of crisp, white bready character from the pale malt, and that, again, is really quite nice. Yeah, so a bit of bread crust, nice kind of bit of bread crust, nice bit of crisp, pale white bready malt in there, and then yeah, that's forming the backbone of this beer. I think the further you go into the aftertaste for this, it gets more and more bitter, and you can feel the bread getting a little bit more grainy and a little bit kind of crisper. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is very, very nice actually. So gets a thumbs up from me. But like I say, the malt base in this beer gets a bit sweeter the more that you drink of it. So yeah, if you focus on that middle third of your palate, then you can feel there's a little circle in the middle of your palate there. So the base of that circle is definitely the more kind of grainy aspects of the McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing, and that lingers there into the aftertaste. But if you go into the very dead centre of your palate, you can feel that those kind of slightly brown sugary elements just concentrate themselves a little bit more, and then you do get like a very bright, slightly sweet caramel in the very middle of the palate, and that is where the alcohol is coming out in this beer. So yeah, 6.7%, though this is certainly not the most alcoholic West Coast IPA that you're going to have, but it's kind of right in the middle of the road, to be honest with you. I've had West Coast IPAs that, 8.5%, 9% and things, although that's into double IPA territory. But yeah, I've had ones, the Jackhammer from Brewdog, which was a bit of a staple back in the day, that was like 7.2, if I remember rightly, and I think I've got a feeling that the original Punk IPA was 6.5 at least, actually. So yeah, this one is kind of around what the original Punk IPA was. But yeah, this is pretty damn solid actually. Very good, very nice malt base in this. It's quite straightforward. Bread crust, white bread, bit of McVitie's digestive, and then that wee bit of a more oily, kind of sweeter caramel. So it gets a thumbs up from me, absolutely. So, on the, how do you say, on the, what do you call it, on the back third of the palate, it does actually start to show a wee bit more graininess there, but I don't think we really need to say anything more about the middle third of the palate in this. That's what I was kind of just contemplating there. But yeah, if we go to the back third of the palate then, the border region between that front third and middle third, the middle third and the back third of your palate, sorry, you do get a little bit of a kind of bread crusty build up in there, which is great. So yeah, a wee bit of a stronger kind of bread crusty thing building up there, which I really like. And then the base of that, back third of the palate is also very, very nice. So yeah, so yeah, on the back third of the palate, you can feel the bread crusty character is a little bit stronger and a wee touch more grainy. Absolutely. On top of that, you can feel the white bread is a little bit thicker, and again, it's got a wee bit more kind of graininess to it. So yeah, you can feel that bread crusty, grainy character, and then sitting on top of that, you get a wee bit more of a kind of yeasty element to it as well. So on the on that sort of more on the yeasty character of the beer that sits on top of the bread, it's quite interesting because it's got a wee bit of a kind of Jacob's cream cracker sort of thing. You do get a wee bit of that biscuity note in there, but I'm also starting to feel that some of the biscuity elements are kind of creeping over into the back third of the palate, and I really like that too. But yeah, you do get a little as we say, you do get a little bit more of a just a crackery and slightly woody character to it, but then a wee bit of a kind of bread crusty. I always find the yeasty character in these West Coast IPAs is a bit different. It's always a little bit more lighter and crisp. But yeah, on top of that white bready layer on the back, third year palate, you definitely get a wee bit of a crackery, woody, slightly grainy, bread crusty character coming out of this one. And again, that's quite nice in this. But on the back third year palate, you can definitely feel that the flavour is a little bit taller. Then as you come further forward, the flavour just condenses down a wee bit as you go into the middle third of your palate. So I really like how that goes together actually. It works very, very nicely. So on the on the malty and yeasty side of things, I don't think there's really very much more to say. I think we should focus more on the hoppy side of the beer now actually. A little bit tired, so my brain's starting to go when I'm filming this one, I can feel it. But yeah, let's focus on hoppy side of the beer. So, green component first. Back third of the palate then, you get a nice little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward, you can feel that quite quickly the beer, you can feel that the Chinook, the base of the Chinook just kind of forming there, and you get that big piney resiny note. But as you reach the front corners of the palate, you get a little bit more of the kind of spicy floral aromaticity with this one. So just going by the way the flavours come out in this, I think there is a wee bit of, I think there is a fair little bit of early edition hopping in this one. But yeah, around the front curve of the palate, the beer is definitely lighter and more grassy. And it does show a wee bit of zestiness there, but I think the piney resin and the floral aromaticity in this beer is a wee bit more prominent than the grassy side of things. But let's focus on the front third of the palate. And let's focus on the front third of the palate and the more kind of the more fruity side of things actually. So border region then between front third and middle third of your palate, you've got a nice little bit of bready build up there. Then the base of that front third of your palate is a little bit more of a kind of bread crusty, white bready sort of thing. There's a bit more of a smooth white bread actually the further forward you go, but remember, bitter flavours come out toward the back of the palate, the sweeter flavours come out further forward. But yeah, on top of that smooth bready layer, you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. And again, I really like how that goes together. But yeah, toward the back of that front third of your palate, you can feel a bit of the stronger grapefruity character coming out of the beer, and that's from the Chinook. But remember, Citra is going to give you that too. As you move slightly forward, you'll get a wee bit of passion fruit, but then as you move further forward toward the middle of that front third of your palate, you'll get the more sort of oily, mango-y sort of thing out of this beer. But yeah, as you move into the kind of front half, of that front third of your tongue, you can feel the beer gets a little bit different for sure. So you can feel almost, I get a little bit of that gooseberry lychee thing kind of underneath, forming the base of that front half of the front third of your palate, and that is from the Citra, of course. Chinook is a bit more of a straight up hop than Citra. Chinook's grapefruit and pine resin, whereas Citra's got a lot more complexity to it. But yeah, you can feel the base, there's a bit of gooseberry there and then a wee bit of lychee, but then sitting on top of that on that front third of the palate, you get that big lemony zesty sort of thing that you can get from Citra. I don't know if it's right to say there's a wee bit of a limey character in there, if it's a bit more of a lemon lime, but yeah, you've got all of this kind of thing going on there, and I think it works out really nicely in that sense. But yeah, it's a very nice West Coast IPA, this one, and I think it's very, very well done. Yeah, I don't think we really need to say any more about the flavour of this, but it's definitely a bready, biscuity leaning example of the style. Yeah, I think we can move on to the mouthfeel then, just to round off the review. So for me, definitely a mid-bodied beer, maybe pushing toward the top end of mid-bodied for this style, of course. Carbonation's very smooth, it's got a bit of an oily slickness to it too, which I very much enjoy. But yeah, on the bitterness side of things, it's a bit difficult to say with this. I think this might be a 50-60 IBU one, and as I said before, these West Coast IPAs have you know, sort of mellowed out a little bit or calmed down on the IBU side of things. So I think this might be a 50-60 IBU one. The malt base, as we see, has a bit of graininess and a bit of smoothness and also a wee bit of sweetness, which I really enjoy. But then you've also got that nice oily fruity character to it, and it's quite a pungent fruit. You get quite a bit of pungent passion fruit that lingers into the aftertaste, but then the sweeter fruits come out a little bit later on as well. And the beer, the whole beer sweetens up the more that you drink of it. But overall, this is a really nice West Coast IPA, and I'm impressed with this. As I said, I would love it if OO Brewing would use the base of this one, or, you know, do a 150-50 series of West Coast IPAs based on this. This would be really nice. But back in the day, Evergreen and Muscles were very, very good West Coast IPAs, actually. They were a bit more caramelly than this one, of course. This one is more of a kind of bready, biscuity thing, as I've repeated a few times. But yeah, it gets a thumbs up from me, this. So hopefully this isn't the last that we see of this beer. Very good one from OO Brewing, of course. But yeah, let's leave it at that. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from OO Brewing. We will no doubt return to these guys at some point in the very near future. But yeah, very nice West Coast IPA, this one. This one was the Cichi, 6.7% ABV West Coast IPA from OO Brewing in Gothenburg, up on the west coast of Sweden. Slange it, skull, cheers, check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Cheers.